Welcome back, students, to Redstone University. I hope that you've enjoyed the field trip that we took in last episode, because now it's back to schoolwork. So, what we're going to review today is the Redstone Lamp, blocks that interact with comparators in interesting ways, dispensers, and the target block. We won't have any very heavy subjects today. First, we will start with how to craft a redstone lamp. So it's very simple. You need one glowstone and 4 pieces of redstone dust, placed in a cross section like so. A redstone lamp is basically a toggleable power source because when it's off, it's basically a normal block. But when it's on, it acts like a piece of glowstone. Now, it differs from glowstone and other light sources because, well, for one, you can turn it on and off, but 2, it acts as an opaque block. So that means you can send signals through it. Like with glowstone, you cannot. And since it's opaque, you cannot run it up in a redstone line tower like you can with glowstone. Now, a redstone lamp will activate immediately when it's being powered, but it takes 2 redstone ticks to turn off. So, like so. And it can also be pushed by pistons. And now, we're going to talk about comparators with other blocks that you might not really associate with redstone. So first, the jukebox. Now, the comparator will output a certain strength depending on which music disc you have in the jukebox. So for example, cat would have a signal strength of 2, while chirp might have 4, and stall would have 8. Now if you go to the Minecraft wiki, they'll tell you everything you need to know about that. Which disc or what. Now, next up is cake. And if you watched the last episode, you know where I'm going with this. Because every time I eat a piece of cake, the signal strength will drop by 2. So it starts at 14, eat 1, 12, 2, 8, 2, and then once I eat it all, it's gone. Now, this one might surprise some of y'all. Now, you think item frames, they're just aesthetics only. But actually, that's not true. When you rotate an item in here, so like this arrow, it changes the signal strength in the back. So, normally, it's like this. And that has a signal strength of 1. But it can go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 8. And finally, we recognize the lectern where you have to put it on a certain page. But what we haven't talked about is this circuit right here. Now, what you can do is you can make these things combination locks. So you have to be on a certain page for this redstone lamp to activate. So I'm on page 2. That means it won't reach these, so nothing happens. This torch is still on and it activates this NOT gate. But if I go to 4, which is too many, it will deactivate the torch, but then activate the repeater, activating the NOT gate, turning the lamp off. But when you have the correct combinations, like 3, and then maybe you have a couple more lecterns, and they all are set to the right one, you'll have the torch off and the repeater off, because this is powered here, which will deactivate the NOT gate, activating the lamp, or the secret door that you are trying to protect. Next, we have an item that is not used too often, actually. It's called the trap chest. And, well, the reason why it's not used that often is because it's a bit obvious that it's a trap chest because of the red lock right there. Now, you craft these using tripwire hooks and chest. So, what they do is when you open the chest, it outputs a signal strength of 1 on adjacent redstone dust. Now, you might see an issue with this, because what about if you want to take a comparator output from the chest for whatever reason? Well, actually, it doesn't work that way. You can fill this up, and the comparator will take that signal, while the redstone dust will do nothing, and And if the chest is empty and open it, Comparator will not turn on. First, in order to use a dispenser, you must be able to craft it. So, it's a lot like a dropper, where you have 7 cobble like this, an upside down U, and a piece of redstone dust. But before you take the dropper, you put a bow in the middle, and you get yourself a dispenser. Now, a dispenser looks different from a dropper, because it has a hole like this, instead of an upside down trapezoid like that, or triangle. A dispenser is much different from a dropper, except for one thing. Most items, like carrots or things that are not entities, will be thrown out just like a regular dropper would. So, but it changes for certain items, like projectile items. Anything that's a projectile, so this includes arrows, snowballs, bottle enchanting, or poison, splash poison, all that stuff, the dispenser will shoot it out in entity form. So we just had an egg fire, and fire charge fire, snowball, and arrow, and experience. Now I can also spawn things, but this is for creative only. So you can spawn another chicken. And it can also use things like flint and steel. It can light a fire. Or it can put out a fire with a water bucket and collect it when it's done. And then it can also place down shulker boxes. But it cannot destroy them. It cannot retrieve them. And finally, it can place down TNT. Oh, get away. And it's lit. Oh, that's what cost us. Finally, we move on to the target block. Now, the target block is fairly new. And what it does, and it's kind of obvious in its name, is it acts as a target for projectiles. And depending on how close to the bullseye the projectile is, it will give out a signal strength dependent on that. So, if you hit a bullseye, you'll get a signal strength of 15. But if you hit, say, like the edge, it'll go all the way down to 1. So, if you hit a target block with an arrow or a trident, it will send a signal that is 10 ticks long, so like a stone button would. But if you throw like a snowball or an egg, it only lasts for 4 ticks. So that's just something you keep in mind. And now, another thing that the target block is very useful for is, for one, it's an opaque block. So redstone can power it and receive power from it. So like if I had a repeater here, it would go right through it. But the really cool thing about the target block is it redirects redstone into it. So say we have this piston here. With most things, redstone will just run by it in a line. But if this was a target block, it would connect to it. So if you have a piston laying right here, you could put a target block right here and it would power the piston, because this would soft power this block. So that is very useful in some redstone contraptions. I hope to experiment with it more as I get more familiar with this block. And now for extra credit. What I want you to do is I want you to create some sort of mini game involving the target block and some of the other things that we use today. So, down here, I have a mini game that I've built. And we're going to see a little preview about it before we start. In this mini game, we will be deciding the fate of man and machine. Who will win, the machine or me, in the battle of the bullseye? Alright, it is time to compete with the robot. So, on 3, we will start. 1, 2, 3, go. Wow, that's a lot of buttons. I got it! I beat the bot! Ooh. Well, you could say that this robot is very persistent. I mean, look at that. Now that's a lot of damage. I hope you enjoyed class today, because I sure did. I enjoyed teaching you about stuff that you wouldn't really think is associated with redstone. So, if you have any questions about this episode or any previous episodes, or any future episodes for that matter, feel free to drop your questions in the comment section below, because me or someone else who watches the channel can answer it for you. So, if that's all, class is dismissed. And now it's time to take down this wall.